Hello everybody, Cone Dodger here. Welcome back to Automation. Today we are doing something very different from our normal Automation Let's Play episode. We are going to review a car company. This is something myself and the Tom have worked out this week where we are trading car companies. He has already released a video reviewing the Vector Automotive company, and I am going to review a company of the same era, but we made sure that we weren't directly comparing, car versus car or company versus company. We just kind of want to swap ideas and see what directions we took. So, I am going to review today sort these by name because he very nicely dates his cars, unlike this slacker down here who doesn't do that. The Carinthian Motor Company, which looks like it has just based off the names, just based off the little notes I got about the cars, looks like it's kind of based off the European, maybe luxury car market. But we will take a look through these and see for ourselves what they are and what I think of them. Alrighty, first up we have the H series, which is a hot hatch with 5-door configuration. And probably the entry level. Let's see what he has to say. It is a hot hatchback meant to be not only fast but also economical, practical, and reliable. Alright, well, 207 horsepower, and 6 gators all-wheel drive, so probably pretty quick. 1,200 kilograms, it's a little heavy for the size of car that it is, but all-wheel drive will do that to a car. 2003 small V8, so a V8 in this car. Is it longitudinally? It is indeed. Very interesting. Let's actually get rid of the body. Yeah. I mean, it actually doesn't take up much of the engine bay either, so it's a very small V8. You know how I like my small V8s, so I'm already a fan. Let's start with the underpinnings. Let's take a look at that engine. It is short-stroked, 3.5 liters. It uses I-beam steel, forged pistons, so no joking around down here. Normal quality. 10.0 compression, regular cam profile, no VVT. I didn't think it had VVL either. No, it does not. Okay. It is non-turbo, I believe. Correct. And multi-point EFI, regular single intake, performance intake, runs on premium, so that's kind of mid-grade for us. Very lean, wow. Yeah, doesn't get any more leaned out than that. A 6,300 RPM limit is a little bit low for such a small displacement V8, but is still high enough that you can have some fun with it. Everything is certainly very much in the safe range as far as reliability goes. Long tube headers, dual exhaust, correct sized exhaust. Much better than I would do. Actually, I don't know, it's a little bit too large, I think. 308 horsepower versus 207 horsepower. Yeah, you could have gotten a little bit more performance out of this thing with a smaller exhaust. Just saying. That's my thing, man. You can't go stealing my obnoxious large exhaust. Let's see. High flow cats, straight through, so pretty noisy. Let's see what it sounds like. I think this engine will get used in more of his cars, so we won't have to take a detailed look at it in the future. Certainly extremely economical there in its main power range. Up at the top end, it certainly starts to lose its economic ability, but still with an economy of 25%, not bad at all. A reliability of 70, certainly hit his marks there, if that's what he was going for. Fairly cheap. It's not obnoxiously expensive. Certainly there's some elements on it that are quite costly. What kind of valve train did it have? That is one thing I didn't notice. It is that the first page? It is a modern overhead valve setup. Interesting. So push rod. A modern push rod setup. So that's saving some money, but explains the low-ish RPM limit. There you go. So with the trim, it is, let's see, manual, single clutch. We already saw that it's a 6-speed. Has 149 mile per hour top speed, geared to do 168, so a decent amount of overdrive. Let's see, viscous LSD, 45-55 distribution on the all-wheel drive. So pretty mundane there, not overly fun, but very suited for performance. Medium compounds with 205s. Looks like it is set up to be pretty tame. Ooh, lots of brakes. 4 pistons on the front. That's a lot of brakes for a light car. And 2 pistons in the back. So, no joking around there. It actually has negative brake fade. Does that mean that the brakes can't get warm enough? Like, they actually can't produce heat? I'm not sure. I've never seen that before. Let's see, moving on. The under tray is semi-clad. Very minimal, oh, no downforce at all. Okay, very minimal cooling. It has enough to be pretty reliable, but the engine doesn't require a whole lot of cooling. Let's see, brake airflow. It does have some brake airflow, so there you go with, again, the brakes. Very high-tech brakes. 5 seats. That's going to be a little cramped in that back seat. Standard interior, standard CD, power steering, ABS traction control, advanced 2000 safety. Progressive springs, adaptive dampers, and looks like a somewhere between comfort and sport setting. Lots of camber. It has a little bit of bottom out. Let's see, let's go back to, we'll just go to the detail stats real quick. So the car has a 58.7 drivability, 37.5 sportiness, 35.5 comfort, 22.4 prestige, 52.4 safety. So very high drivability, kind of average sportiness and average comfort. The only 2 real standout things is its drivability and its safety. So this is kind of your normal daily driver kind of car, but it has a little bit of sportiness to it. Let's see, what was killing the sportiness? Let's see, understeer, oversteer, 7.7%. So that pretty significant amount of understeer is what is ruining that value. But on the other side, probably gives it a very good drivability. So it's just a different approach. All right, and then its performance stats, 5.6, 0 to 60 is very good. I think it's probably a good quarter mile too, a 13.98. So it's a quick car. It doesn't have a ton of top speed at 142, but it's a very quick car to drive, especially around town. It's maybe just not necessarily as sporty to drive. So as you're driving it, sure, you're going fast, but it feels very safe to drive, is how I would describe it. And the last thing we have to look at is the looks. So the Tom is pretty much known for his very intricate car designs. He typically does a lot of recreations and stuff like that, where he uses a lot of details to try and replicate stuff. And this car is no different. It has a lot of nice details to it. All of this use of grills and vents and other bits and bobs to try and make more detail into the body. Certainly see it in the back. I mean, who knows how many grills that is going on right there. But he's going for a certain look, and it's kind of cool how it fades off into the distance there. Maybe for the era, think of a 2003 car. Think of your average 2003 car, maybe a little too busy, and I would say would almost possibly turn people off due to how futuristic it looked. Just think about how poorly received the Pontiac Aztek was when it came out versus how much that car fits in now. So then we thought, oh my god, this thing is hideous, why would we ever make a car like this? But then today we realize, oh, that was actually kind of, in some ways, predicting what the car market or what the car styling was going to be in the next 5-10 years. So maybe just a little bit towards that, not nearly as dramatic, but it certainly looks very sporty without looking overly aggressive. So a good car for your, I would say, young adult market. Oh, and a total cost of $10,646. I wouldn't say it is outwardly cheap for the style of car that it is. However, it is not overly expensive either, so somewhere in the mid-range. But let's move on to the next car. Alright, now we have the S Series 3.5, which is, I guess, pretty much in the same family as the H Series, if you will. It is just the normal sedan style. Very similar in body styling, certainly uses a lot of the same touches. You can tell these cars are of the same manufacturer, which is something that I've always kind of tried to keep a part of my series, is to make sure the cars all look cohesive and of the same make. And this one uses, I believe, the same engine. We'll run through it real quick. 2003 small V8, yes, I believe it is, but possibly a different variant, I'm not sure. Let's see. Yes, this one has some more performance to it. See the higher cam profile, same-ish bottom end, but did it use the pushrod still? Did indeed. That is a very interesting route. I would not have thought of making a new starting modern car company and using pushrod setup, but he's certainly making it work. This one does have a little bit more RPM limit to it, but still uses that super low fuel mixture all the way leaned out to get max economy performance, not necessarily max performance. But it is making 222 horsepower, and it does it with a good bit of overrun, which is nice. Torque curve, peaks right in the middle. It's very drivable. It still has a nice amount of torque even in the bottom end, so it's still a very good drivable car. So let's see what the trim looks like. This all looks fairly familiar, except this guy uses a geared LSD and just regular rear-wheel drive. It has virtually no overdrive, which is interesting. Top speed is 159, estimated top speed is 163, so it's actually a little bit underdriven, which might have affected the economy a little bit, but probably helped its sportiness in some way. Medium compound road, 225 with a 255 rear. This right here, this is supercar territory. 255 rear on a 2003 car would be pretty extreme on 16s, so that's kind of, that makes it a little bit more believable. 17s would have been maybe a little fantasy, but 255 on a 16 could be possible in 2003. It uses, again, a lot of brakes, vented disc with 4 pistons, 300mm vented with 2 pistons. Let's see, this one has a normal brake fade, but with a weight of 1,200 kilograms, again, I think that might be a little bit more brakes than possibly was necessary. Fully clad, no downforce once again, and cooling airflow is very safe. It does have some brake cooling, which does add to the cost of the vehicle pretty substantially, but does make sure it has 0 brake fade. But with the brakes on this thing, I'm not sure that would ever be a problem. Let's see. 5 seats in this guy as well, so again, a pretty cramped rear seat. Premium interior, standard CD, all the driver assists except for launch control, and again, advanced safety. Carinthian Motors seems to be very proud of their safety standards, which is something we over at Vector probably can't really say. Let's see. Standard springs on this guy with, again, adaptive dampers. So he thinks it is worth the about $50 of material cost and extra half a production unit to get in those adaptive dampers, which would be pretty cutting edge for 2003. Mostly the same kind of suspension setup as the H series we saw before. So that gave us a drivability of 59.4, again very high, a sportiness of 39.1, which is certainly higher than the H series, a comfort of 35.2, which is higher than the H series, 25 prestige, which isn't great. Let's see what's affecting that. It is the engine, probably that small displacement, and the rear-wheel drivetrain, I suppose. Entertainment quality. Prestige is a hard one. That's a hard one to pull off in an affordable car. And safety, obviously very good. Nothing really here that is killing it. Besides that oversteer. Lots of understeer on this guy as well. A negative 12.9 on sportiness. Probably why it's got that really good drivability. And let's see. Anything really standing out here? Suspension options. Wheel load, roll angle. So yeah, the car is pretty well balanced to be drivable. Styling wise on this one, I think this, for whatever reason, on this body looks a little bit more era correct. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the early mid-2000s Lexusi. I don't know how to say that, plural. The taillights, again, very detailed and dramatic. Certainly gives this car an exotic flair. And with a price of $11,786 total cost, that's not MSRP, that's how much it costs to produce it. This car would be fairly expensive, but definitely does get into the compact sedan comparable to a 330i is what he was going for. I certainly think that this car would be a good fit for that kind of market, and with that kind of price point. The Tom says this is something that he can't compare to any other car in the real world, because it is a roadster with just a ton of power and front-engined, and is just a ball of craziness as far as I can tell. I'm going to start with the styling on this one. Again, a really good job of keeping these cars thematic and making them all look like they are of the same family. He certainly did a great job of adopting that mentality. It certainly looks exotic. Very big wheels on a very small body. This is the Nata Miata body. Looks like we have a removable hardtop on this one. And yeah, now that this is a 2004, and on this body shell versus that first one we looked at, this looks period correct to me. It could be that I'm just seeing it multiple times and it's starting to like, I'm just mentally getting used to it, but I do really like the front end. The back end, though, is very interesting, and it looks very Ferrari inspired. I almost think maybe, I feel really bad for saying this, but it looks like one of those kit cars where you turn like your Fiero or your Miata or whatever into a Ferrari. It just, that's the first thing that hit my mind when I saw it. I don't mean any offense. It just it just reminds me of that. It certainly has the look of a performance car, so we'll see if it has the performance to back that up. So this one has a mid-size V8, and it is a V8 aluminum. It is modern OHV again, so pushrod style. It's aluminum. Forged crank, I-beam steel, forged pistons. It is 5 liters, and was it short-stroked? Just barely. And 10.7 compression, kind of normal cam profile. Looks like we got some quality bumps here and there. Injection, it is direct injected, so that is very early. 2006, I believe, is when the first production car, direct injected cars, were starting to hit mainstream production. There were certainly some earlier direct injection stuff, but 2006 is kind of when that stuff really started becoming common. Single intake with a standard intake, not performance. Runs again on mid-grade. Not all the way bottom down on the leanness, but still pretty close. It's got a good bit of timing in that 6,500 RPM limit due to the valve float, I am sure. It's 6,500, so let's experiment. No, it could go much higher. But, you know, you're not going to get any more power, and you're not going to get any more economy, so I certainly see why he left it at 6,500. And long tubes, duals, 2-inch exhaust. Pretty much the same exhaust there. So 317 horsepower, 327 foot-pounds of torque. Pretty decent numbers for a 5-liter V8. But it does it with a 26.7 economy rate. So again, these Carinthian guys, they are very big into their fuel economy, which will help them out a lot as the 2000s move on and fuel prices go crazy. I did just notice that engine was very expensive. It was like $2,400 plus, you know, the man hours. So let's look at the total cost in the end. Pretty much the same here, except we have an electric LSD. That's very expensive and very cool. An estimated top speed of 171, just a hair bit of overdrive on that. Sports compounds, 245 in the front, 275 in the rear. This, although this is certainly more of a muscle car, high-end sports car kind of deal, 275 tire to me just seems maybe going into the unrealistic range. It just doesn't seem like a normal car that you would buy off the showroom floor would have 275 rears on it. Unless it was like a Corvette, a Porsche, a Ferrari, something like that. So that is now where, in my mind, this car is trying to compete with. But it has some aspects to it that would be very competitive against those cars. Vented, 6 pistons. Again, these guys really like their brakes. It is fully clad. No downforce once again. Let's see. Cooling airflow, 268.5. So lots of cooling. Does use some brake airflow as well. 2 seats, obviously. Standard interior. So there's your difference between your Porsches, your Ferraris, etc. Standard CD, power steering, ABS traction control, and again with the advanced safety. Standard and adaptive, so this is a pretty common thing here. I'm curious why you don't go for the progressive springs. It's a nice little upgrade and doesn't cost very much, but it's just a decision these guys have made. These guys being Tom. Adaptive, again, on the dampers are very cool and give it some nice suspension upgrades. Looks like we're on between sport and race suspension. 2 degrees of camber front and back. That's quite a bit for a factory car. We already covered the styling, and yeah, once again, I do quite like the front and front quarter of it. Certainly did a good job of hiding the fact that this is a Miata. I mean, not a Miata, but it's totally a Miata. Cost, yes, very high. $13,622 just to produce it, but it's higher than the other cars, but it's still not supercar or exotic expensive. So, it's a car, you know, still the average middle-class guy could probably maybe afford. And since he's buying this 2-door car, he clearly doesn't have kids anyway, or he hates them, so it'll all work out. So it'll all work out. 54.4 drivability, 53.1 sportiness. These are 2 numbers I love to see being paired up together. That means that it's easy to drive and still drives in a sporty manner. That's really cool. That makes a fun sports car to me. That's one of the things that I always look for when we do the fan builds and stuff like that. Comfort is also really high at 33.1. Prestige, 23.3. That's a little lacking, and that's kind of what I was hinting at earlier, is that this is more akin to a muscle car than it is, say, an exotic car. Safety is still at 51.1, which is pretty good. What we really want to look at is these performance stats. 165 top speed, a quarter-mile time of 13 seconds is really good. 133 on the skid pad, really good. 5 seconds 0 to 60 is pretty good. I think it maybe, I didn't see, does it have some wheel spin issues? Yeah, even with those gigantic rear tires. The weight distribution probably has something to do with that. At 57.3, 42.7. It's going to be hard to get that weight, you know, all transferred to the back to get those rear tires to hook. But overall, I like this car. I like that he has gone for a market that doesn't exist. That's a big thing that Vector has always been looking for, is markets that don't have a lot of competition. So as a new startup company, now granted we don't know the history of these Carinthian guys, they could have been around for ages. You know, Carinthian style's been around for thousands of years, so who knows how long Carinthian's been around. But still, this car right here definitely has a nice market, especially I would say in the American side of things, probably even the European. I would say in the European side, probably maybe towards the Z3 kind of car, but with more performance. Maybe towards the Aston Martin kind of thing. Let's see, but over here, it would be competing with things like the Camaro and the Mustang, and I think it would be pretty competitive against those guys. And last, but certainly not least, is the X Series. So this guy here is your exotic car. Now it looks like it's using the small chassis, so not a whole lot of engine bay space in this one. Vector has also built a car very similar to this, which is interesting. Unfortunately, due to file sending errors and stuff like that, he didn't get to fully review it, but stay tuned for the future of Vector, because we have something that might just compete against this car. Now, it is 2004, but this is an exotic car, so we can accept the fact that it looks pretty exotic, and I do really like his styling on this car. Again, it still looks very much like the other cars. But man, he really nailed it with the back end. I really struggle with getting the back end of this car to look good. I'm not a huge fan of this wing. It's very Fast and the Furious, but overall it works pretty well for this car. The front though, the front like quarter profile, really good. I really like the front of this car. It's very aggressive and sleek and mean looking. I like it. Performance. Oh, we have a flat plane V8, so a new engine for this guy. Looks like I see some cams under those heads too. Aluminum silicone block, so this is a very expensive engine, I can tell already. Dual aero cam, 5,000 per cylinder, aluminum silicone heads, billet steel, I-beam titanium, lightweight forged, fairly short stroked at 3,500cc, which you have to do with this thing to get this engine to fit. 12.1 compression, 82 cam profile. We're nearly into race engine category there. Has VVT. It is NA. It's direct injection, throttle per cylinder, and performance intake. Wow. Yeah, very expensive, but it still uses mid-grade. So there you go. You can at least afford to put a few gallons in it every month or so. Not totally leaned out, but fairly lean. Ignition timing is 70, so high. Oh yeah, 8,500 RPM. I want to hear this thing. Let's get through this. Long tubes, duals, high flow, all of this is normal. Let's see what this thing sounds like. Interesting. It shows as being too wide. He must have sneaked it in there though. Yeah. I love the smoothness, that crisp exotic sound of a flat plane V8. Especially a small one. I approve. Oh, when it's not running it fits. Okay, so until you have to use solid motor mounts with this car. Otherwise the engine will rock around and hit the firewall. Alright. Economy, still above 20%. Very impressive. And it made 400 horsepower. Granted, it's all at the top end, but it's an exotic car. It can handle it. Let's go to the trim. Sadly for him, only regular manual is available, so 6-speed single clutch manual. Does about 188 miles per hour, it looks like. Electric LSD. It is just rear-wheel drive. Sports compounds with gigantic wheels and tires, 255 and a 305. So just massive, massive amounts of rubber underneath this thing. We have huge brakes. Did you guys really expect anything else? Got downforce setup on the under tray, but no downforce is selected here. But yet he's got the wing angles. I'm wondering. Yeah, see this does affect things. Interesting. Huh, so Cone Dodger just learned something about automation and the new version. It was my understanding the downforce here affected these as well, but apparently it only affects the under tray. But interesting that you would choose the downforced under tray and not putting downforce on it. It must do something though. Yeah, I mean it does do something even with 0. So that's interesting. That could probably use a little bit of balancing. Alright, and 2 standard... so it's just a standard interior. That's kind of disappointing for a car that's going to cost this much, I think. Standard CD, everything but launch control. It could probably use that launch control, though. And just standard safety on this guy. So the car we can do 180 miles an hour in, that one doesn't need to be safe. Come on. That'll be fine. That's the Vector mentality. I can get on board with this. Standard adaptive. And looks like a race setup pretty much down here. Just with a little bit of rifling. So yeah, this is supercar. This is exotic car. It's interesting. It'll be really cool to see how this car compares to the collinear, because very similar performance stats, but we got there in a very different way. I mean, this car has 59.5 drivability, 61.8 sportiness, so it's super exotic in performance, but it does cost quite a bit too. 25.1 miles per gallon, so you can still afford to drive it, maybe. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how this stacks up against the Vector. So that's probably what we're going to do next episode. Spoilers! And last thing we look at is the test track, 3.3, 0 to 60. Holy crap, that's fast. that's really fast. And 11.75 mile certainly backs up its performance stats. It doesn't have that huge rear bias. You gotta watch out for that. Probably made getting it to handle correctly a challenge, but he's certainly done pretty well with that. Core energy is a little bit low at a 127 and a 126. This thing seems to be more of the Veyron type, rather, or maybe even a Koenigsegg type, where it's all about going really fast. Handling, good enough. Alright, well, that is going to do it. Thank you, Tom, for taking part in this little experiment we've done. It's been really fun seeing how you tackled a pretty similar challenge to what I've been going through over in the Vector Automotive Challenge. And I hope you all enjoyed this little spin-off thing we've done here. But starting back up next episode, we'll be taking a look at this guy. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you next time.